Welcome to the Fretboard Journal podcast. I'm your host, Jason Verlinde, the founder and publisher of the Fretboard Journal magazine. As always, we have John Rauhaus playing in the background. It's been quite a week here in the United States. It's November 6th as I record this, 2025. Just want you all to know the podcasts are going to keep coming. I personally, during stressful times, find listening to familiar voices comforting. So my job here in Seattle, Washington is to keep interesting perspectives, interesting people, inspiring musicians in your earbuds, in your speakers. That is what I'll be doing, in addition to, of course, making the Fretboard Journal magazine, which is our flagship thing. So if anybody wants to distract themselves, if anybody wants to get inspired, go to fretboardjournal.com. If anybody is feeling isolated and wants to reach out, you can always email me directly, podcast@fretboardjournal.com. And yes, we do have a Patreon too if you want to support all that I do. So on today's podcast, I'm talking to the one and only Sierra Hull. Again, one of the world's great mandolin players, one of the greatest people on earth. I absolutely love talking to Sierra. And Sierra just put out a couple of covers that I was definitely intrigued by. I'll be honest, I thought maybe there was a covers record on the horizon, but nope. She just recorded Mad World and then Black Muddy River by The Dead back to back just for the heck of it. And we had a great chat talking about that, Sierra's crazy touring schedule. Sometimes she's doing solo shows, as she is going to be doing in the Midwest here in just a week or two. She has so many projects going on. We get a sneak peek at her new octave mandolin that's coming from our friends at Northfield, and it's just a great chat. I hope you enjoy it. Speaking of our friends, we have a couple of sponsors that I want to give a shout out to. First up is Mike and Mike's Guitar Bar here in Seattle, Washington. One of my favorite guitar stores to hang out in, one of my favorite stores to shop from. An incredible array of vintage acoustics, electrics, synths, amps, you name it, right in the Seattle Fremont neighborhood. They also have a full-service repair and restoration shop. Go follow them. Go follow them on YouTube as well. They are up to so much interesting stuff. I'll include a link in the show note. Our other sponsor is Stringjoy Strings. And I'm happy to announce, Sierra's on the show today, they've got mandolin strings now. So if you want to try something new out, try out those Stringjoy mandolin strings. You can use the discount code FRETBOARD when you check out and get 10% off of your first order. We are also brought to you by our friends at Peghead Nation, one of the great online instruction portals around with so many mandolin, guitar, and banjo instructors. It's really astounding. Go to Peghead Nation, use the discount code FRETBOARD there. You can get your first month free. It's really a cool service. So many former Fretboard Journal subjects are teaching on Peghead Nation. It really just feels like an extension of the Fretboard Journal family. Our 2025 Fretboard Summit is taking place August 21st to 23rd, once again at Chicago's Old Town School of Folk Music. We are knee-deep in planning it right now, so if you want to register while you still can before it sells out, go to fretboardsummit.org. No other big announcements. We're waiting on the 55th issue of the magazine to mail to everybody. It should be just any day now. We're hard at work on issue 56. A reminder that the Fretboard Journal makes for one heck of a great gift, and you can start off your gift recipient with the current issue, so there's no wait. And thank you all for tuning in and being a part of the Fretboard Journal community. It means the world to me to know that you are all out there listening to us, and it means the world to me that I get to share all of these great stories with you all. So we'll keep those coming. Again, today's guest is Sierra Hull. Sierra, welcome back to the Fretboard Journal podcast.
Thank you, Jason. Good to be here. How you doing?
I'm doing well. You have a couple of singles that I want to ask you all about, but before we get onto that, what have you been up to? How's life in Nashville?
Life is good. It's been, one of the busier years I've had. Just traveling a lot this year. It's kind of just felt a little bit nonstop, honestly, doing a lot of my own headline shows, but also the first part of the year, I did a lot of stuff with Bela Fleck, kind of finishing up what touring we were doing with the My Bluegrass Heart project, which we've done a lot over the last, 2.5, 3 years. And so we finally kind of wrapped up that season of touring by finally getting to go do a big Europe tour, which was kind of always part of the thought process that we'd eventually go do something over there. So between that and doing some of my own European stuff and then just kind of nonstop here in the US, it's just, yeah, it's been a really, really jam-packed year and finally squeezing in a little recording in the midst of all the crazy as well.
Yeah. Is the audience, I imagine the venues are a lot different. Is the audience dramatically different for something like My Bluegrass Heart in Europe versus here in the States?
Well, yes and no. I would say in Europe, though, we really got to play some gorgeous halls. So it was like, if you imagine that kind of picturesque Carnegie Hall type setting, it was a lot of like symphony halls. Like I remember we played just an unbelievable spot in Hamburg, Germany. That was just like the most beautifully designed room. Another beautiful spot in Vienna. Like it was, yeah, it was really cool. And we played a few like smaller shows, clubs here and there too. But mostly kind of that orchestral feeling, music hall kind of places. And we do a good bit of that here in the States as well when we do stuff with Bela. But it really felt cool to be like in these old cities, just walking around, seeing all this like old architecture, and then to step inside a venue and a music hall that, it's just been there for years, it's really cool.
I'm sure you guys are having to use amplification, but I mean, it must be really cool because the mandolin is an orchestral instrument back in the day, and those halls were made for that.
Oh yeah, I would definitely usually take a minute to kind of step out to the front of the stage and just always like hear what the acoustic sounds like.
Yeah, it's so cool. So you're one of these artists who just like you're doing it all, like Cory Wong, or style you're playing with Dave Matthews, Billy Strings, the Allman Betts Band. You wear so many hats. It's crazy.
Well, thanks. Thank you. Yeah, it's funny. It's like I think just a lot of things that have come my way weren't necessarily things that I would have even imagined, but as opportunities come and the phone rings, you kind of get an opportunity that you think, wow, that would be really cool to get to do this and be part of, like, you mentioned lastly, the Allman Betts thing, was just something that like, I didn't even know those guys at all. I didn't know Cory at all before he reached out, those kind of things where, um, you kind of go, oh wow, well that's really nice to be thought of, that they would think this would work too, to get to come be part of this. And so I'm doing a couple more of the Allman Betts shows this year as well. Had a lot of fun doing that last year. I think I went out for 4 or 5 dates with those guys, and same with Cory. It's like, you sort of stumble upon this thing that you're like, well, let's try this, and then if it really works and is fun, you wind up kind of that being a collaboration you can continue to build and have something that can be part of the musical landscape, which I love, because I really love being able to have a variety of things. And I feel like all this stuff that I've gotten to do, from even like in the early part of the year, we opened some shows for Brad Paisley, and I had sang and played some on Brad's new project. And I mean, I've known him for a good while, but just being able to like see that show up close for over the course of a short tour, and like see the way someone like that puts on a show was just incredibly inspiring. I mean, it's just his bands, they've been together for 20 something years. All those guys have played with him, so it's like they've got it down, the transitions, the flow, just the whole presentation. So it's like anytime I get to kind of step outside my normal thing and be in these different worlds, whether it's with Bela, which is similar, but also like incredibly inspiring, just the level of musicianship, things like that. From the musicianship to maybe the way a show's presented, to the way people have a flow with the way they guide their bands, and just kind of getting to watch all that. I feel like it's like I feel so lucky to get to experience all that, and always feel like I return to my own solo projects with a newfound inspiration and things that I've learned from just being around all these great musicians who are from kind of different worlds than me.
Yeah, I mean, you've become like the most versatile mandolin virtuoso because you're going from all these different settings. How much planning? I mean, let's take the Allman Betts versus Cory. Do they tell you ahead of time, like, here's what I'm hoping we'll do sound wise? I want you to bring the F5 and be acoustic and bluegrassy, or do they just kind of, how do these shows evolve?
A lot of times it's like a lot less discussion than you would think in advance. And a lot of stuff really does kind of happen in the moment. I think as musicians too, like not just me, but everybody, we're always like in this cycle of so much going on these days. And everybody, is just so busy, it seems, going 100 miles an hour. So oftentimes it's like I'm focused so often on what's coming up this week, what is right ahead of me, while also in the back of my mind going, cool, I know I've got this thing in like a month or 5 months or whatever it is, like trying to keep that little nugget in the back of your mind of like, okay, I need to be thinking about what this might be or whatever, prepping for it a little bit. But yeah, oftentimes it's a lot of stuff comes together, in the moment, like with the Cory stuff, we had recorded together first. I can't remember if we talked about this last time, but what we had recorded, like he reached out to me during the pandemic and was like, hey, I'm making this more acoustic EP. I'd love for you to play on this track, be featured on the song if you would. So we had never met. He sent it to me. I recorded my stuff remotely and just really enjoyed playing on the track. I thought it was super fun. And then that kind of sparked a friendship with us, just kind of like meeting online through working through me doing these tracks. And we ended up like writing a song together and collaborating a little bit, just kind of on Zoom and stuff. And then it was only like, a year or so later when we actually got to meet as things started opening back up. And then I joined those guys on a tour opening the show and playing some with them. And then I later did another tour. And so things kind of evolved more and more, where it was like the first tour, I did some of my songs and then I played a little bit with them. Then it was like the next tour, we got excited about getting the horn section in on playing some of my songs. So rather than me just opening, it was kind of like, well, what if I just play most of the first set and we do a lot of my music in that set and they have horn arrangements for it and stuff like that. So, sometimes you sort of get together and you find what's working, what doesn't work, in terms of the actual, like, the nerdy side of amplification and trying to figure out like how the acoustic instrument works in certain settings. I will say that part is a little bit trickier because though I've found ways to make it work, there's no denying the mandolin is never going to be as loud or will not sound as good as loud as, an electric guitar standing next to that. So I've been, getting more into figuring out how to, be able to make that work, improve my DI tone, even occasionally run through an amp in those really loud settings as needed, which is tricky, not ideal, but it is doable and can help just when there's a lot of stage volume, while also, trying my best to still lean into some bit of having a microphone on the instrument, which is helpful, even in loud situations. It still can be helpful a little bit. But it's like on the flip side of my own personal show where like, if I can use 100% microphone, that's what I'm going for. And it's not always doable on a big festival stage. I'm still given a DI line as well, but the mandolin to me at its best, the acoustic mandolin, just there's no replacement for that natural tone of the microphone. And, you can really only do that in settings that aren't super loud. So yeah, I've leaned more into playing electric. Actually, I know the listeners won't be able to see it, but I'm prepping for a Halloween show. And I'm going to show you. Yeah. I just got this. So I have this Northfield electric octave that I actually brought out on the Allman Betts tour.
Nice. Beautiful.
Guesting with those guys last December. And this one I'm showing you is the prototype. So I don't know if you can tell, but this one's a little bit bigger. But it's essentially like kind of for those listening, kind of looks a little bit like a Les Paul, you might say, totally. The body shape, and it's a coarse string. So it's essentially just an octave mandolin with the double strings and all. I have a couple electrics that are single string, but this is the double string. But you can plug this thing up and use all the effects. It's loud, it's fun, but it still has that really unique, especially with the coarse strings. It still has that unique mandolin quality to where it doesn't just sound kind of like another electric guitar, which sometimes the electric single string mandolins I have can kind of lean into that. But what I found is that one is so it's awesome. But I did this show guest or sitting in with Billy and the Kids, Phil Kreutzmann from the Grateful Dead, in New York last fall, and I played mandolin. I had both instruments, and I played. This was before the Allman Betts thing, but I that was like maybe my first time taking the octave electric, and I played like a few things on the acoustic, and then finally was just like, this is just, it's kind of hard. It's hard to hear, and it was all very much kind of on the fly jamming. And so I wound up basically just playing most of the set on the electric, which was really fun. But the scale length is such on that it was just like, it's really fatiguing to like solo for, a 2-hour show over and over, do extended soloing. And it feels like you have to make choices based on the limitations of the instrument or the limitations of the scale length, in some cases, which is doable, but also fatiguing. So I started talking with Adrian at Northfield about like, man, is there any way? Because I have a variety of octave mandolins, and some of them are great if you're just playing chords and things like that. But if you're really going to do some serious soloing, it's a little bit, more conducive to have just a slightly smaller scale length. So I just got this guy yesterday.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going to take it out this weekend on a special Halloween show I'm doing. But they're going to call it the LE Octo is what they call it. But this is the midi. So it's like, it's just a little bit smaller. I mean, you can see like for me, size wise, it's still much larger than a mandolin, but like, it's so fun. It's so fun. So I find myself, it's like, ish. It's still got a good chunk to it. It's definitely heavier than an acoustic instrument. But yeah, it's not super light, but it's not super heavy either. You know?
Yeah, and it's got that cool like German carve around the upper bout. Did you ask for that or?
I didn't. That was their own aesthetic they did. So I mean, in comparing the two, you can kind of see the difference in size here. So the scale length is, quite smaller. So that's what I'll be doing after we get off this interview, and what I've been kind of messing with a little bit since I got it yesterday, just kind of getting familiar with that. But it's great figuring out a way to kind of fly with the instruments. And, I think he figured out a way for me to be able to have this and my F5 in a gig bag to be able to carry on, which is something that I've been like really hoping for. And so anyway, that's a long-winded answer for what you're talking about. But, in terms of collaborations, that's something I've been thinking a lot about, because it's not only tricky sometimes for volume, but also figuring out like, if I just go do a solo thing and it's just me flying out somewhere to sit in with somebody or whatever, like, being able to, travel with all the additional stuff and figuring out how to make that work. And, being able to just have an instrument that can be loud, but still feels like you're bringing that mandolin quality, Yeah,
I was going to ask, because when you said you were playing with horns, I was like, how does an F5 style mandolin compete with horns? But I mean, do you put the horn players behind plexiglass or something?
Well, Cory's band particularly, I mean, he's got like anywhere from 5 to 6 horns on stage at a time. And they are some of the most incredible horn section you'll ever hear. I mean, they're just amazing musicians. So they do have like amazing dynamics. But yeah, I think like in that mix, it's a combo of, DI and his sound engineer would actually take the mic. Sometimes people don't even want to bother with it. But I, shout out to Miles with Cory's team for actually like, being able to use the mic, because there are those quiet moments when people dynamically come down in the mandolin solos that then you can mix that in more and sort of bridge the gap. So, but yeah, always going to have that DI a little bit in those situations, which most people, even in bluegrass these days, are so used to just plugging in, and it's kind of more part of the culture. But I guess I'm just old school enough too to just like love. I feel like I've spent my entire musical world trying to figure out how to produce a good sound on the instrument, just acoustically. And then the moment you plug in, there's just no replicating that fully. I mean, there's good stuff out there. I think it's better than it's ever been these days. But it's definitely something that both myself and also the guys in my band were just always chasing, trying to find the bridge between being able to amplify the instruments in the most pure way possible. And then if you choose to rock out and throw on some pedals or, do something else, then that can just be the choice. You know what I mean? But it doesn't have to be the only way to get the instruments to feel loud and amplified.
I was going to ask, with those Northfield electrics, like, is it opening up this Pandora's box of pedal boards and amp choices, and where do I take my music with these tools that can do all the things?
It's hard to say. I've never been a real gearhead, to be honest. So, I was laughing. A songwriter friend of mine called me this morning and asking me something about, tortoise picks. And I was like, gosh, I'm not even the person that I don't know anything about this. I'm like, people have given them to me in the past or whatever, but it's like, I've probably used the same picks and strings and stuff like that, mostly the same DI, like a lot of stuff for a long time. Like, I tend to go, okay, if it's working, I just tend to use it. I think I tried a different set of strings on my mandolin just for a thing I did yesterday for like the first time in a few years, probably. I don't really experiment that much. If I'm finding something that I do like and it's working, it's like occasionally I'll try something else. But I'm definitely one of those people that it's fun. I love being able to like throw on a pedal, and it's been fun for me to have a reason to sort of sit down and mess with it with this Northfield and stuff like that. But if I know myself, I imagine I'll probably still be doing it in my own limited kind of way of just trying to go, what are the small amount of tools that I will, tinker with and find something cool and sort of settle in with that for a while, as opposed to, having 50 pedals in my office here playing with.
I don't know. The next time you're playing with Billy, and just use that pedal board of his for a minute or two, see what you can do.
I know. Well, I need me a tech. He's got his tech back there that can literally, crank up what do they have, one just called Money or something like that, which is so hilarious. To crank on that money tone or whatever. That's what I need. I need me like a pedal tech who's like, can just make me sound sick on all my solos.
You live in Nashville. That is probably around the corner from you, whoever that person is.
Totally is.
So when you changed the strings the other day, was it noticeable? Was there a dramatic difference, for better or worse?
It is noticeable. Like, part of it is that I've used D'Addario for years, and so I did a little interview with those guys at IBMA just the other week, and I was talking about the strings that I've used for a long time, and I love them because they sound really natural. Like, you put them on and they're a very like what I imagine my instruments sounding like. They sound that way, and they're the XT phosphor bronze. But then they make this string that I guess has been out for a while now. I just hadn't tried it, called the XS phosphor bronze, and it's like an extended life, kind of almost like their version of what a elixir would have been, and I can already tell they're going to last like a lot longer. But it's sort of the thing where I kind of going, okay, is it frustrating to change strings and then the strings die quickly? Yes. And as busy as I am, it means I'm changing the strings constantly. Now, granted, I've gotten really fast at it, so it's not that big of a deal, but it's like you're constantly, having to throw on a new set of strings. So it's like, okay, well, like most things, gear, or most things, as we're sort of figuring out what we like or what we want to use as musicians, you kind of go, all right, well, do you want the thing to sound the best it can sound for that short window that you get out of a one set of strings? And you can say, okay, well, maybe that's worth it if I could be committed to constantly changing strings like every day. But then there's times where you also go, oh man, well, I just changed these yesterday and we're going to be outside today. And, I know they're just going to die. So I'm not going to change them. So then you end up actually having strings that sound kind of dead. Right. And you just end up playing shows with slightly dead strings, versus maybe you take this other string that maybe won't sound quite as satisfying as this other pack of strings, but the overall, like the middle ground for consistency of how long they will sound better. They're going to sound way better than the dead strings, if that makes sense. So it's like, do you go for something that's maybe not as quite as good to my ear as the other thing for the short window, versus the other thing that maybe for a longer stretch, I'm actually getting a higher quality sound because they're going to sound newer. I don't know. So I'm experimenting with that right now, which is unusual for me, but we'll see. We'll see.
At your level of playing and in all the different settings you do, and maybe it's probably the most dramatic in your band setting, like, are you having to change strings after every single show in some of these settings?
In an ideal world, I would.
Yeah.
I would, because, just for like, maximum quality. Because by the time, especially if you're in festival season and stuff like that, because a lot of times by the time you put them on and you've sound checked or you've practiced or done whatever, and then you play the show, it's like by the time you sound check and practice the next day and get to the show, by the end of the show, they're going to be kind of toast for me. Now, if I was just, for the average player that's listening, that maybe isn't traveling and performing constantly or recording or whatever. I mean, when I'm home, I'll leave a set of strings on for a long time. It's, as far as just practicing, I know they can be expensive and all that stuff. So I'm by no means saying everybody needs to rush out and, change strings every other day. But yeah, I think, in an ideal world, yeah, every show I would change strings. But with the new set, we'll see. I don't know. I might could get 2 or 3 shows out of them. And if so, again, is that worth it to have that extended life, which is pretty much that's what they're calling it, extended life strings. Is that worth it? It might be, but jury's out. Because I think my first reaction was like, yeah, like, I don't know. Like, these maybe don't sound as like natural to the instrument to me as I would like, compared to the set I'm used to. But then my husband and I went to Knoxville and did a little benefit show with a bunch of friends out there for the hurricane relief last night. And that was the first time I'd actually like played on them. And granted, I wasn't playing like a full set. I was just on, half the thing. But I looked over at one point, I like played a note and I was like, they still sound new. I was like, well, the jury's out. They're still sounding new. So
yeah, I don't think most mandolin players talk about the cost of mandolin strings. I think it's just a pain in the ass to change mandolin strings.
Oh man, it's funny. I think I've done it so much now that it doesn't really faze me. You know what though? A string winder. If we're going to talk gear, that is a piece of gear that I'm like, if I had to choose, that's top priority for me with touring. It's like, that string winder really speeds things up. And a lot of people don't realize you can get, well, those that are serious about the mandolin would realize it, but sometimes I see guitar players who maybe also have a mandolin or whatever and don't realize that you can actually, there are a handful of folks out there, I think, who make the ones that actually fit the mandolin. Yeah. Like if you just get like a Planet Waves one, it's not going to be small enough. So
do you have one of those ones that Frank Ford made at Griffin, or a fancy one like that?
I think the one I have is a Dudenbostel one.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those. Those are
but
beautiful.
Then I've also had like one from the Mandolin store guys. I think they have them. So there are a handful of folks out there making them, and I'd recommend any of them. Like just anything to speed up the process, because it is tedious and it's so tiny. So it's funny, Justin, also not a gearhead. He plays way too many instruments to be obsessed over, I guess, gear, but also, a mandolin player. So he does a lot of sessions and stuff like that. And sometimes he'll have like 3 instruments he needs to change strings on in a given morning around our house. So sometimes, I'll see him change his strings and I'm just like, give me that thing. Get it done faster. Just he's not into tinkering with the winder, but I'm like, I'm here to tell you, it makes a difference. Take it from me.
There's your next viral social media post. Like, let's see how fast you can change some mandolin strings.
I guarantee you I'm not the fastest, but faster than I have ever been, I will say, just because I'm doing it so much.
Since I asked you about the Northfield electrics, like the acoustic you're playing, the acoustic mandolin you're playing go ahead, tell me.
Yeah, so it's a master model, Gibson F5. I've had it since 2009. It was new when I got it. So I think when I went to the Gibson shop and played a bunch of mandolins that were spread out on the table, and this one was there, and I think it was maybe about a month old when I got it, and or at least when I played it. And then built by Dave Harvey there, who's still the master of luthier at Gibson to this day, and he made a couple modifications to it for me. At the time, I had just played Ricky Skaggs's signature series mandolin, and it has such a small neck on it that I found that to be really comfortable. And so they made the neck smaller on my mandolin than like your typical master model. So it's got, quite a petite neck, which I have small hands. So I kind of appreciate having that. And then usually the fretboard extension, with the frets kind of come traditionally like a lower would have, but I had them scooped as a lot of us mandolin players do these days, just to kind of avoid the pick click. And then I'm trying to remember now. I think because I had played the Skaggs signature model, which was also a distressed mandolin. Mine wasn't distressed like at all when I got it, but there is an aged finish to it as opposed to like some kind of gloss or varnish finish. And so it didn't have like any distress at all. It still looked new, but it wasn't a shiny mandolin. So that's kind of the small modifications that were done to it early on. And then of course I've played it so much now that it's got a lot of wear and tear on it naturally, just from because it's really been the mandolin that I've played since 2009. I've pretty much played every single show, but maybe one or two on that instrument. And I say only one or two because they made me a replica of that mandolin that I got in January of this year. And so I took that mandolin to a show we did in Mexico and maybe one other out in Colorado, and sort of committed to playing it on those shows. But still, that's it's mostly been the mandolin I've played since 2009.
I'm sure I've asked you this exact same question over the years, so forgive me, but if someone hands you a 1923 or 1924 lore that your mandolin was based on, do you get the magic? I mean, certainly you're around players who have like the cream of the crop lore F5s from back, that are now 100 years old. Does it resonate with you as a non-gearhead, or you're like, yeah, I like mine?
No, I love beautiful old instruments. I do. I've always been, drawn to old instruments, like old Martin guitars, especially. Probably, weirdly enough, old Martin guitars, maybe even more than old lore mandolins, as weird as that sounds. But but yeah, I've played a lot of lores that, it's all really cool to get to sit down and go, wow, like what's the story on this instrument, and also realizing that like everything my mandolin is trying to be was based off of that, right? I mean, so there's a really cool connection to that, I think. I will say though, I rarely find myself with a lore in my hands that I feel like I've got to have this. And maybe one day I will. Like one day, I think one day I probably will buy one, but I just haven't yet like played, whether it's a lore or something else, I'll say. I don't think I've played that many that I've just felt like blew my mandolin out of the water. I think the mandolin I have, I've been really lucky to not only have it, but I think because it's been the instrument I've played, it's not like I've played it here and there and then switched to something else and then come back. I've sort of just, for whatever reason, probably just out of, again, not being some gearhead, I've never been somebody that's like, I've got to buy like a new instrument every month or whatever. I just kind of typically, I've been lucky to have some good instruments and I've played those, but it's so played in at this point. There's so many hours spent on that particular instrument. And so I don't know, I think there's a connection you get with an instrument sometimes, and you know what it does, you know how it feels, you know how to get out of it what you need. And so I think, I felt that so much with my particular instrument that I don't know, I've just not yet found one that I thought would be something that would make me put that one in the case and move to something else. But I do love getting to play them. I think it's really special when you can spend time with those instruments. I had a really beautiful one in my possession actually for a couple years that Ed Lowe from Low Vintage Instruments just like didn't want to sell. And he called me up and said, can I send this to you to just basically babysit? And I was like, yeah. So Justin and I would play it, and I would occasionally take it out and play it on something, or I recorded with it on a track I did for like a side project. But anyway, it's fun. But yeah, I've never yet felt like, oh, this is the mandolin that's going to make me put my mandolin away for a while.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
And 15 years of constantly touring with your one mandolin, and one night you might be in Telluride and the next night you might be in San Francisco or Palm Springs. How has it held up? Does it need TLC every once in a while, or has it been pretty bulletproof?
I think that's another reason that I have constantly played this mandolin, because it holds up so well. Whereas, older instruments, with all the wonderful things they bring and all the, there is something really special about the sound of an instrument that just has that kind of age to it. But also they can be finicky and difficult to travel with. And, especially with acoustic instruments moving from dry climates to humid climates and stuff like that, can be tricky. And somehow my mandolin, again, I'm not a tinkerer. I next to never adjust the action even. Like that's the one thing I would do and have done when I need to, but I rarely do anything to it. That's the honest
amazing.
truth. I change the strings. I rarely do anything to it. And every once in a blue moon, I'll take it for some new frets or just a basic, setup. And I live here in Nashville, so I'm, probably 15 minutes from the Gibson custom shop. And so I can go drop it off with Dave, Harvey, and the team over there, and they'll, get her cleaned up and ready to rock again every once in a while. Like, especially if I'm going to record, or you might get a weird buzzy thing, that's happening here and there, just little things. But yeah, I've been pretty lucky. And I think that's another benefit probably of it just being a newer instrument, that it is kind of built tough in that way and seems to hold up really well in the traveling and tuning. Even I don't find myself having to like constantly tune it either. So again, I don't know if that's just this particular instrument, or if I'm lucky, or maybe that's, who knows.
That's very cool. Well, the reason I reached out to you is because I want to hear what you're up to musically. You've got a couple of covers out into the world in the last few months here. And I don't know whether that's a precursor to an album or not, or you're just having a lot of fun. But first it was Mad World, and then now the Dead's Black Muddy River. And tell me what you're up to.
Yeah, well, so I've been working on a new record for a long time. I started recording some music as far back as like a couple years ago now. Gosh, probably getting closer to 3 by the time people actually hear some of this stuff. But, part of it was I have been with Rounder Records my entire career. I signed with them when I was 13 and made my first record when I was 15. I think it came out when I was almost 16. So, you look at the progression of like, and I've always been somebody that really quality over quantity was important to me. I wanted to make things that I could, hopefully at least, it's tricky. We all look back at stuff we do and go, oh my gosh, like I sound so young, or this or that, all that stuff. But like, stuff that I knew that I gave it my absolute best and took my time to try to make something that I could, look back at the end of my career, hopefully someday, and feel like, okay, I'm still proud to put that out. So I've not really been somebody that's just constantly gone in the studio and released stuff left and right. Which for better or for worse, sometimes I'm always kicking myself like, oh, do I really need to take 5 years between records? Like, this is not the best career move to do that. But also, I'm just, call me a perfectionist or just somebody that just cares so much. I don't know, can't seem to change my tune there. But anyway, I've been with Rounder my entire career. And then my 25 Trips record was kind of the end of that contract and the end of that obligation. And I took a long time to sort of make my way in a, they never rushed me to put out records, thankfully, or anything like that. So I just kind of made my records and put those out. And then I've kind of been a free agent since about 2020. Being the free agent for really the first time in my career was both, it was a little intimidating, but also exciting because I feel like we live in a world where, it's possible to put your music out yourself and just, find partners you can work with, but actually own your music. And I think that's just an important part of people's artistry and working hard on the music and being able to have a say of what happens to it, 30 years from now or whatever. So that was important to me too, to just kind of take my time, make the music I wanted to make and, be able to make sure that I could partner and put it out the way I wanted to put it out. So, yes, new music is coming. I'm actually in the mixing stages right now of the record, which is really exciting, but we wanted to, we knew that was going to be coming in the first quarter of this next year. But in the meantime, people were constantly asking for the live shows. As much as we've toured, Mad World and Black Muddy River have been two covers that we do that have become sort of some of the most requested covers. Okay. And so we would play Mad World or we'd play Black Muddy River and fans would be like, oh my God, when are you going to put that out? Where can we get this? Oh my gosh, please record this, So finally we were like, hey, well, let's just do it. I've not been someone that's released that many covers over my career, like maybe one or two ever, in the whole span of my recording. So yeah, my band and I went in and recorded versions of those songs. And we actually just recorded a couple Christmas tracks as well, holiday tracks, which are coming next. And we're excited about that. So it's been nice to get in the flow of recording and just, making it happen and putting stuff out. It feels good after such a streak of not really releasing recorded music, but being out touring, playing a lot, it's an interesting thing it's not like I've been hiding away or not working on new music, but to actually be able to be in a season of presenting that music and giving fans both some of the things they've asked for, but also some of the new songs that we've sort of been workshopping live for a while now to actually be able to present that. So yeah, Mad World came, Black Muddy River, and then the holiday tracks are coming, I think, in November, December.
Okay. And
then we'll also release those two songs that are coming on a 7-inch, which will be really fun, just in time for the holidays. So we'll have an A-side, B-side. So folks can be looking for that. And then new music will start rolling out. New original music from an upcoming record will start rolling out in the first quarter of next year.
Wow. Okay. So it's not going to be a covers record.
It's not a covers record. It's not a covers record, though. One thought is that, I'll maybe continue to release some covers that we just love in between some of the original music and other things. And eventually maybe we'll put out a collection of those songs. But yeah, definitely not a covers record. Just a couple tracks we wanted to give fans as they've asked for it for quite some time now.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there, just thinking about covers and the, songs that weren't originally played on the mandolin, are there some songs that, maybe aren't ready for see the light of day yet, where you just love jamming along on the mandolin when they're playing on the stereo or anything that would be kind of unusual?
Well, this is random kind of, and not something that I've just thought, oh, I should do this for a long time. But my band and I are doing a show in Naperville, Illinois this weekend, which is a Halloween show. So just a suburb of Chicago. And part of it, we're playing a 2-hour set and we wanted to make sure and include just some fun covers. So it'll be like half covers, half original stuff, but also like a good excuse to just kind of we're going to fully dress up. I'm bringing the electrics. We're going to make it a fun, unique show. And for us, at least, and one of the ideas that got tossed around that we needed to cover is Tom Sawyer by Rush, and so that's what I've been jamming along with on electric, which I'm pretty stoked about. It's really fun.
That's amazing, and probably not easy.
No. No, but it's kind of hilarious. I can almost sing in the original key, So I think we're gonna bump it up like maybe a half step. But I'm like, it's hilarious. Dude's voice is so high, but really fun. And of course, Mark, our drummer, is stoked. He's like, oh my god, this is gonna be so awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Oh wow, incredible. And I'll make sure this comes out after Halloween. What is the costume?
Oh, at first we were going to lean into some 80s kind of vibes for that reason. But then the event is called Howlin' at the Moon. So I think we're all just going to like dress up in like, coordinated skeleton kind of onesies with 80s wigs. So kind of a hybrid of like going into the spooky 80s Halloween 80s vibe. So nothing too fancy, but a little fun band coordination there with the look.
Like the Phoebe Bridgers skeleton suit kind of thing going on.
Exactly. Yeah, that kind of vibe. I got my wig in the mail last night when we got home from our benefit show we were doing, and Justin was in the other room, and I put it on and walked in there and was like, well, what do you think? So I already tried on the wig. We're ready to go.
You're all set.
Yeah.
Well, Sierra, thank you so much for filling me in on everything. I know you're busy. I've seen your tour schedule on your website, so I can't thank you enough for your time.
Hey, thanks for having me. Always great to chat with you, and love everything you guys are doing over there, and just appreciate the support.
All right, that was my chat with Sierra Hull. I hope you enjoyed it. Go check out those singles. I'll probably post a screen grab from the interview so you can check out what that Northfield octave mandolin looks like. And thanks as always for tuning in to the Fretboard Journal podcast.